Welcome to Hive Mind. This is the Sharp Edge. I've had some requests to do videos breaking down some of my most recent digs. This one in particular, The Keys to the Magic Kingdom, exposing the keys to Disney's operations and agenda. What prompted this dig was a handful of Disney actors have recently come out speaking out about sexual abuse during their childhood as child actors and singers, as well as a discovery that was made through a recent Q drop. Some anons had noticed a Disney cruise line that had sponsored a snorkeling venture to Jeffrey Epstein's Little St. James, otherwise known as Pedo Island. And all of these things have raised quite a few concerns with regards to Disney and their true agenda. So I wanted to give a full scope perspective about Disney and their agenda, kind of starting from the beginning and moving forward, so people have kind of a broader understanding of the origins of Disney and their involvement with occult, with pedophilia, with intelligence communities, and so forth, so that they can better understand the current events today that are involving Disney. The first thing that I get into in this dig is the Masonic Key. For those of you who don't know, there's been rumors for a long time that Disney was a 33rd degree Mason. And I wanted to check into this and confirm for myself. It does turn out that Disney was a part of the Order of Molay, which is an association that is in the family of Masonic organizations. But before I get into this, I want to step back and take a look at Walt Disney's family life, because it's pretty well documented by historians that Walt Disney grew up in an abusive household. His father was abusive. It was a loveless sort of family upbringing. Disney wasn't given the childhood that most of us would consider to be a safe and normal and positive childhood. I know that his father was physically abusive and verbally abusive based off of accounts by historians. I don't know if there was also sexual abuse, but that has been in the back of my mind. I've considered that possibility as to maybe what has led to the pedophilia problem within Disney kind of from its origins. Because as we all know, that kind of abuse does tend to be passed down from the abuser to the victim, who then at some point may become an abuser themselves. It's a possibility. I'm not claiming that that's the case, but I do know that Walt Disney did come from an abusive household, and that seems to have been the birth of his imagination. He would escape into his imagination and create these other worlds. Moving on, he joined the Order of Molay when he was 19. The Order of the Molay was founded by a man named Frank Land. The kids in Molay would call him Dad. And when Disney joined, to me, I'm reading between the lines here, but it seems as though this organization gave him the family that he was looking for. It is a Masonic organization. Frank Land was the founder of Order of Molay. He was honored with the Knight Commander of the Count Honor of the Scottish Rite, coordinated a 33rd degree Mason in 1925. The Order of Molay was named after Jacques de Molay, the last Grand Master of the Knights Templar. And as I'd mentioned, de Molay is considered to be a part of the general family of Masonic organizations. It's actually an organization for children between the ages of 12 to 21. And the way I see it is that it was a sort of a recruiting mechanism for Freemasons. They would sort of groom these boys to be the next generation of Freemasons, and it's quite common for kids from the Order of Molay to then transition into becoming Freemasons. The Order of Molay did have quite an impact on Walt Disney. As I said, he didn't have a strong family connection, and so the Order of Molay probably, just based off of my opinion from reading this material, probably gave him the family that he was looking for. The Frank Land was also into art. I believe he graduated from an art institute. He had some high up connections, considering that he was coordinated a 33rd degree Mason in 1925. So I am also reading between the lines here, but I'm imagining that Frank gave Walt Disney the connections and the leg up that he needed in order to be propelled to the position that he came to be in with Walt Disney Company. By the mid-1930s, Walt Disney's studio was creating comics for the Order of Molay, and these comics were just like promoting enrollment into Molay and Freemasonry. It wasn't long after that Walt Disney was propelled into fame and notoriety worldwide. So he was invited in 1935 to go on this European tour, where he went to Paris, France. The League of Nations was going to give him a medal for creating Mickey Mouse. And on this European tour, he met with the British royal family. He had a private audience with the Pope. He had a long interview with the Italian dictator Benito Mussolini. He even met with H.G. Wells, who at the time was a famous writer, and he was considered to be sort of this predictor of the future. He had this uncanny ability in his writing to predict the future. It was almost as though it was predictive programming. Like H.G. Wells may have had some insider information on what the New World Order agenda was and how it was going to play out, and this was sort of projected into his writing. And Disney got a lot of inspiration from H.G. Wells for his creation of Disney's Tomorrowland. This European tour and the Order of Molay were very influential in Disney's early years as to the mindset, the belief system, the loyalties, the worldview, all of these things that Walt Disney had at such a young age that he carried on into creating the Walt Disney Company that we know today. So many of you may have heard of Club 33. Club 33 was a very secret club that was created at Walt Disneyland, and it's rumored to be based off of his Masonic ties, because as we know, the number 33 is obviously of significance to the Freemasons. Walt Disney did in fact have a Masonic club for Disneyland employees. He did have a Club 33. This club is located at around 33 Royal Street in Disneyland, and it's also on the 33rd parallel north. The secretive club's decor is reminiscent of a Masonic lodge. It's got black and white checkerboard flooring. It's got blue and gold draperies, very symbolic in the color scheme there, because if you've studied it into Freemasonry, that's an ongoing theme, those colors and the black and white. The Disney Club that is so exclusive you've never heard of it, it's named after Walt Disney's Masonic ties, has an invite-only membership and a 14-year waiting list, and it costs $100,000 for the initiation fee. The public has become more aware of Club 33 in more recent years, but back in the day when it was first created, I don't think many people knew about it. It was very secretive. The cat's kind of out of the bag on this one now. I'm not sure there's much going on there at Club 33 now, but I do definitely wonder what happened in that club back in the day when it actually was a secret. But considering Walt Disney's connections with the Freemasons and their influence on him and his loyalties to them, I don't think it's a coincidence that this club was named Club 33, that it's on the 33rd North Parallel, that it's got the black and white checkerboard floor, that it was a secretive club. I don't think any of this is a coincidence. I do think he was paying homage to his Masonic ties. I do find the 33rd North Parallel very interesting. I've done a little bit of digging into some other areas on the 33rd North Parallel, which is a really fascinating dig. You can do that research on your own. But there are some really ancient sites of significance on the 33rd North Parallel and some more recent events that have occurred on the 33rd North Parallel. That's an interesting rabbit hole to go down. I'm not going to go into all of that right now, but you can do that on your own. I do find that interesting, and I don't think it's a coincidence. The one site that I do note here that I find of most significance, probably to the Freemasons, is the one that is located on Mount Hermon. Mount Hermon is mentioned in the Book of Enoch. It is on the 33rd North Parallel, and it is mentioned in the Book of Enoch as the location or the site where the 200 watchers or fallen angels descended to earth. And I do believe this is a part of some of the esoteric knowledge that Freemasons like to keep in the higher tiers of their secret society. A lot of their esoteric knowledge is based off of the story of the building of the temple, and King Solomon is a central figure in Freemasonry. He was believed to have a key that held mysteries of dark magic, and it was a ring actually with a six-pointed star, the Seal of Solomon, that gave him the power to summon demons and spirits and use them at will to control them and command them. The number 33 was not just a random number that Freemasons selected. It does have significance. The Seal of Solomon is a star with it's basically two intersecting triangles, each with 3 points, so the 3 plus 3. As a de Molay Legion of Honor recipient, which is the highest honor you can receive in de Molay, and it's equivalent to a 33rd degree Mason. Walt Disney did receive that honor. As a de Molay Legion of Honor recipient, there's little doubt that Disney didn't understand the significance of the number 33 in Freemasonry, and that Club 33 was intentionally designed to honor the Freemasons. Moving on to the next key, which I call the FBI key. I don't know how well known this information is, but Walt Disney was an informant for the FBI. Through FOIA documents, we've received 750 pages released on Walt Disney. There's a whole file on him. A lot of it was blacked out, but from the information that we do have is quite interesting. He had a really close relationship with J. Edgar Hoover. During this long-standing correspondence that they had, Disney was helping during the Red Scare with outing Hollywood people who may have been communists. He was actually concerned himself because he was afraid that communists had infiltrated the Disney company, causing animators to go on strike. So he was working really closely with the Bureau back then to out any communists in Hollywood, and in particular in Walt Disney. It appears as though that through these FBI documents, it looks pretty clear that Disney was sort of a propaganda arm for the FBI, promoting them through Tomorrowland. He also had several communications with them regarding Disney's design of episodes of the Mickey Mouse Club. Based off of the evidence from the FBI files, it looks like Disney worked really closely with them on a number of levels, from outing communists in Hollywood to propaganda through his Tomorrowland and his Mickey Mouse Club for the FBI. There may be more, but this is all that we can really glean from the FBI files that hasn't been redacted. So the next key is the CIA key. And this goes way back all the way to Project Paperclip. In September 1946, Project Paperclip was authorized. It basically allowed Nazi German scientists to come over from Germany to America. It was originally supposed to be about just debriefing them and sending them back home. When we found out how much information they had, we kept them. Allen Dulles offered the Nazi intelligence unit to the CIA, which many projects later stemmed from, including Mkultra. Many programs were stemmed from that. As a member of Project Paperclip, one scientist in particular, Wernher von Braun, he became well known as a contributor for the Apollo moon landing. Von Braun worked really closely with Walt Disney, again, creating a sort of propaganda for preparing and seeding the minds of the public to prepare for a moon landing and to gain public support. So Disney worked with von Braun on several TV shows, The Man in Space, Man on the Moon, Mars and Beyond, in the 1950s and early 60s. And von Braun also helped Disney with creating the World of Tomorrow. So you can see how there's this close connection with Walt Disney working with intelligence communities as sort of a propaganda tool to seed the minds of the public, to prepare them, to create the narrative that the intelligence community needs them to create. Around the same time, Operation Mockingbird was another project that was undertaken by the CIA, again under Allen Dulles. It was designed to manipulate news media for propaganda purposes. And the CIA spent millions per year hiring journalists and corporate media. Some of those journalists were most definitely from ABC, which is owned by Disney, and so many other corporations as well. This is not just a Disney thing, this was across the board. But Disney was associated with it, especially in conjunction with their ownership of ABC. The original operation reportedly included nearly 3,000 CIA operatives and 400 journalists. According to a congressional report in 1976, the CIA currently maintains a network of several hundred individuals around the world who provide intelligence for the CIA and at times attempt to influence opinion through the use of covert propaganda. These individuals provide the CIA with direct access to a large number of newspapers, periodicals, press services, and news agencies, radio and television stations, commercial book publishers, and foreign media outlets. Basically, the CIA infiltrated every aspect of the media, and Disney's companies and affiliates were not immune to that. They were again used as a propaganda tool for the CIA through Operation Mockingbird, as shown here. Disney has had a cozy relationship with the CIA going back for decades. In fact, the CIA likes to brag about Disney's special effects wizard, Robert Cary Broughton, creating award-winning films for both Disney and the OSS. OSS is the spy organization that went on to become the CIA. Files obtained through FOIA revealed that the DOD and the CIA have backed and influenced the production of hundreds of movies and TV shows, many of which were owned by the Walt Disney Company. So again, we have this really close relationship with the CIA and the Walt Disney Company, and we have actual proof of them influencing the production of many of Walt Disney's movies. Propaganda purposes, for controlling the narrative, etc. Perhaps the most sinister of all CIA projects that we know of is Mkultra, and that again was derived from Project Paperclip, the German scientists who came over after World War II. Mkultra was again under Allen Dulles, and it basically was a method of manipulating mental states and altering brain function And they used all kinds of torture, including administering drugs and chemicals, sensory deprivation, isolation, verbal and sexual abuse, and a host of other forms of torture and trauma in order to create a form of mind control in their victims. It originally started as an interrogation method and quickly morphed into a form of mind control. Countless self-proclaimed victims of these horrific trauma-based mind control experiments attest to the use of Disney films in their programming. And it is said that Disney films were so widely used for a couple of reasons. Number one, a lot of these victims that underwent mind control through Mkultra were children. And the reason being is that their ego had not fully formed yet. It makes it easier for them to accept the programming. Disney films obviously appeal to children, and it seems that that was the reason why they were using it. Also, certain films like Alice in Wonderland, Wizard of Oz, these types of films help the children to detach from reality. These films are so widely spread. It's something that these mind control victims can see just a clip here or an image there throughout their life. And in doing so, it reinforces that programming, because the programming does have to be reinforced throughout life for it to be sustained, and usually doesn't end up being sustained. It usually ends up breaking down. The Mkultra program followed many of the guidelines listed in the declassified Kubark interrogation manual, which lists a method of interrogation known as the Alice in Wonderland method. The method involves a confusion technique to detach the interviewee from reality. A lot of similarities there. The relationship between Walt Disney and the CIA was so close that they actually played a key role in helping Disney with the purchase of the land to build Disney World. This is from a book written by a journalist, author, and historian. He's written several exposés on the CIA, and this book is entitled Finding Florida. Disney hired Paul Helliwell, who ran CIA operations in Southeast Asia, and Wild Bill Donovan, who was head of the OSS, the spy organization that eventually went on to become the CIA. And with their help, Disney was able to purchase the land at a very low cost and retain control of the property. So to get the land cheaply, Wild Bill Donovan and his team of lawyers created a number of shell corporations. And then there was this disinformation campaign that was orchestrated to keep the locals from knowing that Disney was buying the property. The residents actually found out, and basically Walt Disney had to come out and admit that he was building a park in Orlando, and the property values skyrocketed. And to maintain control of the large piece of property, Paul Helliwell created these fake cities and installed this sort of compliant government that was going to work to Disney's favor to allow them to build in this area. It just goes to show how closely Disney was connected to the CIA and other intelligence organizations. And it makes me wonder, what was their vested interest in Walt Disney World? There has to be some give and take. Why was the CIA or the OSS so interested in creating Walt Disney World? Okay, moving on. Fast forwarding to the present. Disney's close associations with the CIA have continued to the present day, using Big Brother spy techniques, which have been shared with the intelligence community. Disney World is responsible for the nation's largest single commercial application of biometrics, and after 9/11, the government sought Disney's advice in intelligence, security, and biometrics. Disney boasts about these biometrics that they have in both their parks as well as their cruise line, and a number of Disneyland employees have gone on to fill some of the most sensitive positions in U.S. intelligence and security communities, including Disney executive Gordon Levin, Eric Hazeltine, and Bran Farron. So from Project Paperclip to Operation Mockingbird to Mkultra to illegal spying operations, Disney's had its hand in intelligence operations from its conception and all the way up to today. Now for the last key. the pedophilia key. As I mentioned in the past, Disney did grow up in an abusive household. His father was both physically and verbally abusive. I have no information on whether or not there was any kind of sexual abuse, although I have considered that possibility. It's just a theory, though. There was an expose written by Kenneth Anger called Hollywood Babylon 2, in which he exposes a lot of Hollywood secrets. One chapter is on a boy named Bobby Driscoll. Now, this boy, he worked for Walt Disney. He was one of their early stars. And in Hollywood Babylon 2, it alludes to a possible propensity towards pedophilia by Walt Disney against Bobby Driscoll. It says some of the animators stated that the boss, Walt Disney, seemed to have fallen in love with the boy. There may be some truth in this. The boy, who Walt fell in love with, was a small, young, attractive boy actor named Bobby Driscoll, who signed up in 1946 with Disney. He acted in Song of the South, Treasure Island, and Bobby's voice was used in Peter Pan. Like so many child stars, Bobby displayed signs of trauma from childhood abuse, becoming a drug addict by the age of 17 and dying of overdose a few years later. So, this culture of pedophilia seems to have been originated early on and carried throughout Walt Disney Company. And it goes all the way from the top, executives, all the way down to the low-level employees. And it spans for decades and at every tier. In my opinion, based off of the research, the pedophilia problem in Walt Disney Company is systemic and significant. So I list some examples here. One of Disney's directors, Victor Salva, was convicted of molesting a boy and filming one of the sexual molestations. Former Walt Disney Company executive Michael Laney has been sentenced to 81 months in prison for 4 counts of first-degree sexual abuse involving a 7-year-old girl. Director of Music Publishing at Disney, John Healy, was arrested on 3 counts of lewd and lascivious acts on a child and is accused of abusing 2 underage girls. Furthermore, there are multiple pedophile rings involving Disney that have been covered over the years, involving Disney employees ranging from night shift managers to ticket sales. This is just, a few examples. There are many more. And I encourage you to do your own research on this because there's a vast amount of information on this. Recent unsealed Epstein documents reveal that victim, Virginia Roberts Jeffrey, named among others, Democratic Senator of Maine, George Mitchell, as one of her pedophile rapists. And Mitchell served as a chairman of the Walt Disney Company in March 2004 to January 2007. And with all eyes on this rapidly developing Epstein case, some anons had discovered that there was a Disney cruise line who sponsored a snorkeling expedition to Little St. James, otherwise known as Pedo Island. This definitely sparked some concerns and some questions among citizen journalists who are concerned, considering all of the pedophilia connections and intelligence community connections that Disney has, as well as all the pedophilia connections and intelligence community connections that Epstein has, definitely raises concerns. I did a little bit of digging into the cruise line industry, and it's definitely concerning when you find out that between 2000 and 2014, nearly 200 passengers went missing from cruise ships, and maritime laws for passengers, particularly children, are shockingly lenient, offering no protection under the current law for any kind of compensation for children who die due to the cruise ship's negligence. So I think that they've tried to amend that law as of recently. There was a bill proposed, but I don't think it actually passed because of the cruise ship lobby against it. And given Disney's extensive history with nefarious activities involving the intelligence community as well as pedophilia, and considering that sexual assaults are the most widely reported crimes that occur on cruise ships, it's no wonder that a Disney-sponsored snorkel trip to Little St. James, otherwise known as Pedo Island, raises concerns. So these are the keys to Disney's Magic Kingdom, and it's a virtual Pandora's box of illegal and immoral activities, ranging from secret FBI and CIA operations to pedophilia and child trafficking rings. And as for the ones who've committed these crimes, the time is now to lock these guys up and throw those keys away forever. I hope you found this helpful. Please share, like, subscribe, and hit that bell. I'll see you back next time right here on Hive Mind.